Welcome to Hannity, and tonight the investigation into the Las Vegas gunman Stephen Paddock, it is still expanding, but authorities still do not know what led him to carry out the deadliest mass shooting in American history. Now, the Clark County Sheriff's Department has ruled out the possibility of a second gunman as of now, yet they are still working to determine if he was in contact with other people before the shooting and if those people knew about what was going to happen. Now, the Sheriff's Department is also saying they have not found to date any evidence that the shooter was radicalized or connected to ISIS. Now, according to a report, the gunman, he did travel overseas, and the AP is also reporting that Paddock bought 1,000 rounds of tracer ammunition that would make it easier to see what he was shooting in the dark. And according to the New York Times, Paddock called Mandalay Bay security twice the night before his rampage. He was complaining about loud music coming from the floor below him. Plus, this week, we have seen the worst and the best of humanity. And tonight, you'll meet two Las Vegas police officers who were on the scene for this horrific mass shooting. One of them was shot. It was only his second day on the job. And we'll also tell you the lessons that we learned from Vegas and why it's time for the left in this country to stop exploiting tragedy and always dividing this country. And also tonight, was the president sending a cryptic message to North Korea about possible pending military action? We'll examine his words closely. But tonight, we have an important breaking news opening monologue. So we still have major unanswered questions about why mass shooter Stephen Paddock carried out such a horrific and evil act. Now, during a news conference earlier today, the Clark County Sheriff's Department said it still does not have a motive. We're waiting. Watch this.
To date, we have run down well more than 1,000 leads in this investigation. While some of it has helped create a better profile into the madness of this suspect, we do not still have a clear motive or reason why. We're very confident that there was not another shooter in that room. What I cannot confirm to you today, and what we continue to investigate, is whether anybody else may have known about this incident before he carried it out.
Now, senior law enforcement officials, they're telling NBC News that a cell phone charger was found in the gunman's room, but it doesn't match any of Paddock's mobile phones. And they're also reporting that records show that during a time when Paddock's car left the hotel parking garage, one of his key cards was used to enter his hotel room. Interesting nuggets. Now, the Clark County Sheriff's Department did, however, say they were not aware of that information. There's also a report tonight from CNN that the gunman traveled overseas on over 20 cruises. And earlier today, the Sheriff's Department knocked down speculation that Paddock had been radicalized. Let's watch this.
We have looked at everything, literally, to include the suspect's personal life, any political affiliation, his social behaviors, economic situation, and any particular or potential radicalization that so many have claimed. We're also aware, of course, that ISIS has repeatedly claimed responsibility, which today I can tell you that we have no known nexus to.
Also, according to the AP, Stephen Paddock bought 1,000 rounds of what is known as tracer ammunition. That was a week before carrying out this mass shooting. Now, those rounds were found in Paddock's room, but authorities have yet to determine if he used them during this attack. Now, the report also says that the police found a document at the crime scene with the name of the Arizona man who allegedly sold Paddock those tracer rounds. Also, the New York Times reporting that Paddock, he called Mandalay Bay security twice the night before the shooting rampage. He was complaining about loud music coming from the floor below him. And law enforcement has found an SUV belonging to Paddock that they were searching for. Now, the motive for this terrible tragedy still remains a mystery. And also tonight, in the face of the pure evil that we saw in Las Vegas, America, this country, is learning some very valuable lessons about coming together and unifying. However, despite the tragedy and despite the fact that people are still in the hospital, they're fighting for their lives, well, predictably, there are people on the left, Democrats, celebrities, liberals, in the mainstream media. They continue to politicize this tragedy. Beyond shameful. Now, because this is not what America is all about. Those people should know better, but they continue to politicize what happened anyway, every day. And tonight, I want to focus on what America should be doing now to help and support the great people in Vegas. It didn't matter to the shooter who they voted for. He wasn't asking for ID cards. He wanted dead Americans. He wanted to shatter lives. And instead of dividing the country like the left is doing and has been doing all week, isn't it time for the rest of the country to follow the example that was set 1 hour before this shooting by the people in that very crowd? And doesn't that start by respecting our country, our flag, our military, those people that fought, bled, and died under that flag for this country, for our freedoms to go to concerts? And by the way, even after this terrible tragedy on Sunday night, 2 players on the Kansas City Chiefs, they still refused to stand for the national anthem in Monday Night Football. Now, the stadium did honor the Vegas victims with a moment of silence, but those players still didn't rise for the Star-Spangled Banner. I think it's a huge mistake. If they really wanted to make a statement, they should have come together. Let the 58 Americans who were killed and their families and the nearly 500 plus injured, let them know that their country fully supports them. And last night, during Thursday Night Football, all players finally stood for the anthem. We're going to see what happens this football Sunday. But for the players, those of you that still refuse to stand, maybe you should look at this video of Thomas Gunderson. He was on this program last night. We went to see him in the hospital after he stood to greet President Trump and the First Lady, even after being shot in the leg. Gunderson later wrote this very powerful message on his Facebook page, quote, "I will never lie down when the president of this great country comes to shake my hand. There may be plenty of issues in the country, but I will always respect my country, my president, and my flag. Shot in the leg or not, I will stand to show my president the respect he deserves." Doesn't sound like he will be turning down an invitation to the White House, but it's an example every American should follow. No, we're not a perfect country, but you know what? We're still all Americans. And Thomas Gunderson, he wasn't playing politics. He was focused on healing and unity. And those that continue to divide this country, you should listen to the stories of just some of the heroes from the Vegas shooting. Just take a look at this and pay really close attention because it shows America's greatness, America's goodness. Take a look.
My buddy that was standing right next to me said, "I'm hit." And then we knew it was real. Most people started scattering and they climbed the fence, but I had to stay with my buddy. There was lots of, awesome military, ex-military people that were chained, so we got him compressed, and that's, kept compression on his chest.
Everyone who I thought, has passed on, they have an article of my clothing covering their eyes, covering part of their body. Everyone who I saw breathing, I helped, man.
I went back inside, and it's just something that we do. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't leaving anybody behind.
There was a gentleman that was shot, and he said, "Can you help me?" And so I put him in my car, and I had like 6 people in my car, people without shoes, running away.
We went back because I'm a nurse, and I just felt that I had to.
Another powerful lesson we learned this week is how brave men and women of law enforcement, first responders, firemen, policemen, all of them really are, and the dangers they put themselves in to keep all of us safe. Take a look at this body cam video of Las Vegas police officers. They run towards danger, just like the police, the first responders, the firemen on 9/11, 2001. They run into danger as others try and run away from danger. Take a look.
Go that way, go that way, go that way. Hey, they're shooting right at us, guys. Everybody stay down. Stay down. Where's it at? North of the Mandalay Bay. It's coming out of a window.
You know, you would think after seeing that the NFL players, they really got to take a knee and protest the police this weekend. You know, if NFL players, if they will show support for Colin Kaepernick, really, the former 49ers quarterback who started these protests. By the way, do those players, do they still stand by Kaepernick even after he supported groups like Black Lives Matters that have said, what do we want? Dead cops, when do we want them now? Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. Members of that group said that. I also wonder if those players still have Kaepernick's back after he wore, remember, these socks depicting police officers as pigs. And Kaepernick also supported, let's see, a murdering thug dictator named Fidel Castro. maybe one of the lessons from this week is that we forgot what happened on 9/11. We forgot the 9/11 cops, firefighters, first responders, those that went up those stairs to save lives, running directly into danger to help their fellow human beings out. Maybe this week will teach us that we should stop rushing to judgment on big, high-profile cases. You may remember, like President Obama did so many times, oh, the Cambridge police acted stupidly, or in the Michael Brown case in Ferguson, Missouri, hands up, don't shoot, he got shot in the back, none of it was true. Or Freddie Gray in Baltimore. Maybe police, maybe we got to remember this incident this week in 9/11. Don't they deserve the presumptions of innocence next time? And finally, and most importantly, maybe the lesson from Vegas in this tragedy will be that this country needs to come together. And it starts this Sunday at the NFL and stadiums all across the country. By the way, Roger Goodell, are you watching? Because it's in your rule book. Are you going to enforce your rules? Here with reaction, the author of the best-selling book, Defeating Jihad, The Winnable War, the Make America Great Again Coalition Chief Strategist and former Deputy Assistant to President Trump, Sebastian Gorka, and civil rights attorney, Darryl Parks. You know, Darryl, we were on the other side of a lot of these stories. Put aside the Trayvon Martin case for a minute because it didn't involve the police. But the whole narrative out of Ferguson was predicated on a lie. Hands up, don't shoot. It didn't happen. And we know it didn't happen because the people that testified, the eyewitnesses, saw Michael Brown reach into the car of Officer Wilson, try and grab his gun, and then later charge at him. And the people that said that were predominantly African-American witnesses. You know what? Why is there this rush to judgment anytime it's a whole high-profile police case? Obama was more guilty than anybody I've ever seen.
Well, let me say to you, Sean, I think this week, though, is not about those issues we've seen in the past. This issue today is about 500 Americans who were shot.
I'm talking
by an
about we don't
weapon.
remember when it matters. These guys don't get the presumption of innocence, Darryl, like in the case of Michael Brown.
Well, but I think in this case here, though, we've seen something totally different. We've seen many people lose their lives this week, and our hearts definitely go out to all of those families. This is a time that we got to talk about assault weapons in this country. Did you listen to that gunfire we just heard on your show? I mean, every time I hear that film footage and hear those sounds, it means we got to have a serious conversation in this country about how do we address this issue when we see people lose so many lives we lost this week. We have to answer. There must be a solution. The president has the answer. The Congress has the answer. There has to be a solution from our public servants. We can't stand for this. We can't stand for this.
Sebastian, I just kind of know. I can see it happen. And, you know, today actually happens to be, I begin my 23rd year now on the Fox News Channel.
Congratulations.
I've covered so many of these cases over the years. Thank you. Nobody ever thought I'd be here at this point, trust me, when I started. I've seen so many of these cases. And you know what? It happens again and again, Dr. Gorka. It's predictable.
Sean, I'd like to issue a challenge to Mr. Parks, Colin Kaepernick, any Democrat, demagogue, anybody out there, any American. I want you to show me one instance from last Sunday in Las Vegas where an American peace officer, a police officer, as the bullets were flying, stopped and said to an African American lying on the ground, "Sorry, I'm not going to help you. I hate you because of your skin color." You'll never find it. You'll never find one peace officer in America who did that. Because what you saw on Sunday night is what makes America great. You saw Americans helping each other, vets, nurses, people who don't know anything about combat, saving each other's lives when the stakes were the highest possible. I think your monologue is right. Let's forget about the politics. Let's forget about the NRA versus Hillary Clinton versus anybody else right now. Let's use Las Vegas to come together as a nation. We had 8 years of divisiveness. We had an administration that looked at all of us, me, you, the viewers, Mr. Parks, first based upon their skin color, then their ethnic background, then their sexual preference. That's un-American. We don't look at each other as categories. We look at each other as human beings and as Americans. I think it's time for all of us to come together as Americans, to respect the flag, to respect the national anthem, and understand Las Vegas is the best of us.
I know everyone's saying, oh, we can't talk about guns after the gun debate. I have a question for you. So if somebody,
yes.
I know a lot of these celebrities and a lot of these politicians, you know, they have their gated communities and these late night hosts, they have their bodyguards in their studios and they're protected at the Oscars and at the Emmys and all their self-congratulatory parties that they have on the red carpet every year. But for the average person, the only defense they have is themselves. So those people that want gun control are talking about abolishing the Second Amendment. Let me ask you what you would do. God forbid, for anybody, somebody breaks into your house, Darryl Parks, late at night. Would you rather be trained in the use of a firearm and have that firearm available to protect your family, your wife, your kids, the people you love and care about the most?
Well, Sean, I happen to be a gun owner. Actually, I was trained in gun safety from the 5th grade by my Boy Scout troop. So I've
the answer is yes.
I've been a user of guns for a long time. Yes, of course. Of course.
All right, but then,
without question.
But
we're talking
all
about
these people that are saying the opposite all week, you said, let's talk about guns. You know, the average American doesn't have armed bodyguards. They don't have gated compounds that they're living in like all these celebrities that are lecturing everybody.
But Sean, here's the difference, though. We're talking about an assault rifle. Assault rifles are meant to kill great numbers of people. That's the conversation that we have to have. That's the gorilla that's in the room that we have to talk about. Trust me, the 500 people who got shot by this guy had a regular gun,
made a concession
there wouldn't be 500 people.
They're not advocating for... The NRA is talking about getting rid of the ability to turn this into, from a single shot into, you know, a rapid fire, almost rapid fire gun. We'll give you the last word, Dr. Gorka.
Sean, I learned to shoot as soon as I could pick up a gun. My father escaped a communist dictatorship. The Second Amendment isn't about hunting. It's not even about personal self-defense. I carry a gun. I'm licensed to do so. But it's about the ultimate guarantee against a tyrannical regime. It is the ultimate guarantee for freedom, democracy, and liberty. That's why every dictatorial regime, from Hitler to Mao, disarmed their citizens before they took over. That's the bottom line, and that's why the Second Amendment is non-negotiable.
I don't know if any of our framers or founders ever talked about hunting. That's exactly what they were talking about. Thank you both for being with us. Appreciate it. When we come back, you're going to meet a hero, Las Vegas police officer wounded during this shooting, his second day on the job. His personal story is next.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Jackie Ibanez. On this Friday night, a U.S. official says investigators believe that the Las Vegas shooter may have hired a prostitute in the days before the shooting, and they're now interviewing other call girls to look for possible clues into his motive. The official also says that Stephen Paddock had taken at least a dozen cruises out of the U.S. in the last few years, most with his girlfriend, Marilou Danley, one of them to the Middle East. Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, nearly 30 counties in Florida under a state of emergency tonight as Tropical Storm Nate barrels toward the Gulf Coast. Nate is expected to strengthen to a Category 1 hurricane by the time it makes landfall as early as Saturday night. Nate already wreaked havoc as a tropical storm when it moved through Central America. It's being blamed for more than 20 deaths in Honduras, El Salvador, Costa Rica, and Nicaragua. I'm Jackie Ibanez. Now back to Hannity. For all of your headlines, log on to foxnews.com.
In the depths of horror, we will always find hope in the men and women who risk their lives for ours. We pray for the recovery of the injured and those injured officers who so bravely threw themselves into danger when duty called. And we grieve the loss of the law enforcement personnel who were killed in this vicious attack. Here on Earth, we are blessed to be surrounded by heroes.
All right, that was President Trump praising first responders in the wake of the worst mass shooting in U.S. history. Now, earlier this week, the Vegas Police Department released body cam footage from officers risking their lives, rushing toward the scene of the shooting. Just take a small look at this small sampling of what these officers do every single day. Take a look.
Hit my head. Hey, go that way, go that way, go that way. Hey, they're shooting right at us, guys. Everybody stay down. Stay down. Where's it at?
North of the Mandalay Bay. It's coming out of a window.
And joining us now, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Officer Brady Cook. He was shot Sunday night. It was just his second day on the job. Also joining us is Officer Cook's partner, Officer Josh Haynes. Guys, good to see you, Officer Cook. I guess that's one way of saying welcome to the force. We're glad you're here. Baptism by fire. I know you police officers know the risk. I'm sure you and your family did not expect that.
No, I didn't expect it, but it's what I signed up for. When stuff goes down, I want to be there to face evil and protect the good, innocent people that need it.
Yeah. You know, I know it's an amazing thing, and I've had a chance over the years. I interviewed a lot of military guys. I spoke with a couple of the people that were shot in the hospital yesterday, and describe the scene, the situation, what you were doing, when you got shot, what you felt, and take us from there till you got to the hospital and the nature of your injury.
Well, we responded to the active shooter call. At first we had no idea where the shooting was coming from. We got reports that it was coming from in the festival, then outside the festival, then actually at the Mandalay Bay. So we responded to the call down Las Vegas Boulevard. We got out of the vehicle. There was already some patrol cars there. We parked, we took cover, we got out in a rain of gunfire. All you could see around us was the cement just pop, 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 with the just rounds hitting the ground. We took some cover behind the patrol cars. We actually drew the fire off of the crowd so that other people could get out. And in the midst of all that, trying to find the gunfire, I ended up getting hit. And
tell us about your injury. Where'd you get hit?
He grabbed me and we got out there. We ran down Las Vegas Boulevard. The shooter traced us. I don't know how we didn't get shot more. He was tracing us with gunfire. He ended up ripping my shirt off to see where I was hit. We ended up keep going and getting a patrol car, stealing a patrol car, and he rushed me to the hospital.
Where did you get hit, and what did it feel like?
When I got hit, I went in. It was kind of weird, the whole shooting being in a rain of gunfire. I wasn't scared at all. I had adrenaline going. I didn't even feel the gunshot hit me. I just noticed my arm turn into a noodle. It went completely limp, and I just saw blood gushing everywhere.
Wow. You know, it's amazing how many people tell me they didn't even know because of the environment, the adrenaline, as you say. They don't even feel to get hit, but then they look and they're like, wow, what happened here? Officer Haynes, tell us what happened on your end.
You know, when that shooting took place, we were doing a foot patrol halfway up the strip in a different area. So we traveled down the strip about a mile rolling code, which means, you know, lights and sirens, whipping through the traffic just to get there. And when we arrived, you know, my first thought was to make sure that we did take cover. We didn't know where the rounds were coming from. We actually thought that it was two shooters at the time, one inside the Route 91 concert and then one outside at Mandalay Bay. And by the time we realized exactly where the rounds were coming from, you know, the rounds were coming down like raindrops. There was so many impact points that all we could do was try to hunker down. At one point, you know, Brady asked me, hey, where are the rounds coming from? And almost immediately thereafter, that's when he was hit. And at that point, you know, my only concern was to make sure that he got the care he needed, because there was no way we could bring medical into that range of fire for the shooter.
When you saw his injury, Officer Haynes, when you saw the injury and he said his arm felt like a noodle, and you're looking at it, how bad did you think it was, and How nervous were you just looking at it?
You know, initially, I saw the initial impact, and I thought it was an arm. When I stripped his shirt and I pulled his vest off, I could see 2 impact points. There was one under the arm, and then it looked like there was a second one going through the chest. The intention was to put a tourniquet on his arm, but I realized that time was an issue because of that second bullet wound. I was concerned that he had a lung injury, and at that point,
oh boy,
it was a matter of minutes. So, you know, the tourniquet was not an option anymore, and I knew I just had to get him to a trauma center.
Good for you. Officer Cook, amazing story. We're glad you're safe. We wish you a speedy, speedy recovery. And Officer Haynes, thank you for what you did for your partner and for what you both do for the city of Vegas every night. Thank you both.
Thank you, sir.
When we come back, Patrick J. Buchanan is next. You don't want to miss it.
To date, we have run down well more than 1,000 leads in this investigation. While some of it has helped create a better profile into the madness of this suspect, we do not still have a clear motive or reason why.
All right, that was Clark County's undersheriff earlier today saying there is still no motive for why Stephen Paddock opened fire on this music festival last Sunday. And in an article out today, Patrick J. Buchanan writes, quote, "The real question is what turned Paddock into a psychopath without conscience or a moral code that would scream to him that what he was planning was pure evil." Joining us now, the author of Nixon's White House Wars, Patrick J. Buchanan. You know, it's not a phrase, Pat, that we use a lot, evil. But in the last century, over 100 million human souls were destroyed and murdered. When you look at, you know, communism, fascism, Nazism, Imperial Japan, we can go on and on, the killing fields, Cambodia. That's a lot of people. There's a lot of evil in this world, Pat.
There really is, Sean. My feeling about this is the motive is sort of in front of us. Stephen Paddock made 2 decisions. One, he was going to end his life. The second decision was that he was going to end it in a way that the whole world would remember him. They would know his name. He would no longer be a nobody but a somebody. He would capture the attention of the entire country. And so he plotted and planned this mass murder, bringing all those guns in there. And he went out the way he wanted to go out, and I think the way he wanted to be remembered. In other words, it was personal, not political, religious, ideological. It was the way Stephen Paddock wanted to end his life. Well, we do know he wanted to end his life this way.
Well,
and we do know
it was
that,
meticulously, though, premeditated, Pat, and he also surveilled, as we understand, at Fenway Park and places in Chicago and Lollapalooza. Did he maybe plan an escape? He also had handguns. Was he trying to maybe get out of this and then do it again? You know, I don't think we know yet. We don't even know if he's got some political, religious, or whatever agenda.
But look, the point is, what has happened? What reward did he get? What gain did he get? He's going to die. Suppose he escaped for a couple of hours. He's going to die in this. And what he wanted, I believe, was to be remembered for what he had done and to have himself known to the whole country and the world. You get the president talking about him, everybody. Everybody knows who Stephen Paddock is, and nobody knew it before then. I think a lot of these killings, Sean, take place because people see what someone got in terms of notoriety and fame and infamy, and they say, look, I want to end my life. That's the way I want to go out. And that was the point of my column.
Listen.
The guy is a moral nihilist, a moral monster. It's very dark, but if you take a look at the rationality of it, and he says, I want to end my life, and I want to be remembered as a great mass murderer and the Mandalay Bay shooter, he succeeded. He just like those Boston Marathon bombers. They laid down that. They knew they would be remembered.
But you know, Pat, in my heart of hearts, and I just think there's something deeper here. But at the root of it, you're right. At the root of it is evil. I want to throw something up for you. I think this is an important question. The president does a photo op of military leaders yesterday, and he talks about the calm before the storms, very cryptic, and then he mentions it again today. First we'll play yesterday, then we'll play today. And with these emerging situations in North Korea and Iran, gotta wonder, is he sending a signal? Take a listen.
You guys know what this represents? Well, it's the calm before the storm.
What's the storm?
Could be the calm before the storm.
What storm is
We have the world's great military people in this room, I will tell you that. And we're going to have a great evening. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
What storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Mr. President, what did you mean by calm before the storm yesterday? What did you mean by that?
Thank you very much. You'll find out.
We'll find out.
Let's go, guys. Thank you.
Come on, guys.
We'll see.
Pat, how do you interpret that? Is it just him negotiating publicly, telling them we have the military might to do things?
I think it's that, but I also think it may portend action, and I would believe it would be North Korea rather than Iran. With Iran, he's going to seek to abrogate that nuclear deal, but any kind of military action in the Persian Gulf against Iran, if he's anticipating it down the road, is not imminent. With North Korea, my guess is that it may be some kind of new missile test or something like that, and he intends to deal with it ahead of time. I don't know, quite obviously, but if he's implying something to me, I would be more nervous in Pyongyang than I would be in Tehran.
All right, Patty Buchanan, always appreciate you being with us. Thanks so much. Scary, dark world we're living in, I'll tell you. When we come back, Democrats, liberals, the media, Hollywood elites rushing to politicize this Vegas shooting. We're going to show you the absolute worst examples of what they do, and this is what they do every single day. They do it politically, they do it on cultural issues, and everything else. We'll prove it to you. That's next. And welcome back to Hannity. So just hours after the horrific mass shooting in Vegas, Democrats, liberals, mainstream media, Hollywood elites, late-night comics, they raced to politicize the massacre, with many condemning conservatives in the NRA. Pretty disgraceful. They should be ashamed of themselves. Take a look at some of these worst examples from the week.
What we saw happen in Las Vegas was just another horrible example of people with too many guns and too few restraints.
Now we have to turn to renewed calls, shouts, begs for gun restrictions.
You're not a good parent if you have a gun in your house. You're not protecting your family. You're a bad parent if you have a gun in the house.
You can't buy a Tommy gun. You can't buy a machine gun. Just move that line over to semi-automatics.
Correct.
Do you need a semi-automatic to hunt? What kind of hunting are you doing?
That's kind of a pulverized animal.
Deep down inside, in your heart, you bear some responsibility for the fact that almost anyone can get any weapon they want. Now you want to cover yourself.
And here with your reaction, radio, television, talk show host Gina Loudon, and author, political commentator, and attorney Danielle McLaughlin. Danielle, I look at the celebrities, I look at the late-night hosts, I look at the cable hosts, I look at the politicians. I can think in just about every instance that they have either a nice gated community that they live in, a nice enclave of protection for themselves. They go to events and there are many armed guards taking care of them. I'll ask you the question that I asked Darrell Parks earlier. So somebody breaks into your home or any American's home late at night and they want to do harm to you, your family, your children. What do you do if you don't have a gun? What do you do to the Michael Moores of this world, the hypocrite that he is? What do we do if we don't have a Second Amendment?
I'm not going to sit here and say that we shouldn't have a Second Amendment. If you are for any of the Constitution, you're for all of it. The issue here is not about personal security or safety in the home. Even Scalia said that the Second Amendment is not unlimited. We're talking about high-capacity magazines. We're talking about the free availability of semi-automatic weapons.
You're not
we used to have an
answering
assault
my
weapon
question.
ban.
I know you want to get into this, but you're not answering. The bottom line is this. If somebody enters your home and you don't have a weapon, you're dead. Your family will be victims of a crime. At least you have a fighting chance to protect yourself. But, but we heard people this week, Dr. Loudon, talking about getting rid of the Second Amendment. Not just one, a number of people.
Right. The left likes to speak out of both sides of their mouths, Sean. They like to say, on the one hand, that they're not talking about getting rid of the Second Amendment, but I don't hear them calling for Nancy Pelosi to resign when she just said in your montage that she does hope that whatever happens here is a slippery slope toward revoking our Second Amendment rights. That is where the Democrat Party stands, and we know it. And for them to politicize this, you know, psychologically, Sean, Americans want to come together and support these people, these victims in Las Vegas. They want to stand together and talk about how we're all Americans. They don't want to talk about race or gender or any of the other divisive issues, including political issues, at the moment of their most intense grief. It's insensitive, it's unempathic, and it's just plain morally bankrupt.
What is morally bankrupt? It's not talking about gun control when we have over 500 people maimed in Las Vegas and 50, nearly 60 people killed. We're not trying to take your guns away, and this is frankly a conservative
There are lots of
talking
countries
point.
you can
We're not
go
trying
to,
unwind
Danielle,
the Second
where they
Amendment.
have plenty of gun control, and you can go live in Chicago, where the death rate is higher every single month.
Right, and this is another
than it
conservative
was
talking
in
point.
Las
The guns
Vegas.
in Chicago
if you
come in
want to
through
talk about
surrounding
having
states.
strong gun control,
All right,
it doesn't
hang on,
prevent deaths,
guys,
Danielle, and the research
wait a
is on my
second.
side.
All right, the research is on Dr. Loudon's side, but let me ask you this, Danielle. Why is it the cities in this country, and why is it the countries in Europe that have the strictest gun control laws, they have the highest incidence of these types of things happening when we also have the empirical data? More guns, less crime. Just read Dr. Lott's book.
More guns means more gun violence. More guns means more domestic violence ending in murder. More guns means more suicides that actually
Gun control
end in
doesn't
death.
work, though, does it? It's not working in Chicago. It's not working in France, is it?
We should at least have a reasonable and rational and constitutional conversation around these things. I
We're having a
understand that people are
conversation, but
upset.
I'm giving you data. Chicago has some of the toughest laws in the country, and look at their violence.
The guns
France
in
has some of the
Chicago-
toughest laws in the world, and look at the gun violence. And the innocent people don't have the guns, and Dr. Loudon's right. They want the slippery slope. This isn't just about a particular type of gun. And all these people lecturing us, they're all protected. They all have money. The average American that works hard, plays by the rules, makes this country a great country, the only line of defense they have is themselves, isn't it?
I understand that. I understand that, particularly in rural areas, that you're far, far away from your neighbours, your police. I'm not talking about guns in the home. I'm talking about weapons of war that have no place in a civilized society. None of us who are parents, we don't want to see these people die.
Danielle, like Chicago? Chicago's
guns
not
in
a rural
Chicago-
area, and Chicago has the strongest gun control in the entire country, and they have as many deaths every single month as we just experienced in Las Vegas. When is the left going to face the fact that people who don't abide by laws are not going to obey further gun laws?
Here's the stats on Chicago. 63% of the guns recovered in crimes in Chicago came from out of state.
Just bring up the,
Chicago is ringed by states with lax gun control. That's part of the problem.
The state, those areas that have right to carry laws, those areas that have more guns, more, quote, liberal laws on the books, they have less crime. I urge you to read the book.
Here's some more
guns,
data.
less
Assault
crime. All right,
weapons.
we got to run.
Sure.
Are young people in this country losing respect for the police? Are they being indoctrinated into a mindset that is false? TMZ's Harvey Levin is straight ahead.